All right, so the next step in the process is soldering. Before we solder, what we're going to do is we're going to tack this, the project down to this piece of fire-rated ceiling tile. This is just to protect the tables from the heat. This project only needs a couple tacks. I like to generally tack the heart with 4 tacks. One at the top center of the curves, and then one in the center of the 2 bottom pieces. This keeps everything all together while I do my initial soldering. I'm just going to tack solder it together. This also ensures that nothing's going to move while I am doing that initial tack soldering. So when you solder, you're going to need a soldering iron. Our soldering irons generally are 100-watt soldering irons. We plug them into this soldering iron controller. It's a rheostat. That way we can adjust the temperature depending on what kind of soldering we're doing. There is a wet sponge on the stand. We use that for cleaning off the soldering iron. You will also have a roll of solder. You'll need a flux brush and a little jar of flux, liquid flux or gel flux. We have both. The first thing that we want to do is get our soldering iron ready. We check to make sure it's ready to solder. So I've turned this on already. You can check whether it's ready by just a quick wipe on this wet sponge or damp sponge. When you store your soldering iron, you always want to store it with solder on it. You don't ever want to store it without solder on it. If you look at this, we've got some solder. It's oxidized, maybe a little bit of carbon on it from the last project, but that actually protects the tip of the soldering iron. So to test it, to see if it's ready, I don't ever want to press it right into the sponge, but I just want to do a quick wipe of it, and you'll see that it comes out nice and shiny. If you look at that, and then I'll flip it over, do another quick wipe, and that's pretty shiny. It's all cleaned off. Now what I'll do, and I could hear it, I make a little sizzle. So it's ready. So what I'll do is I'll open up my flux jar here, and I'll just dip my flux brush in it. The first soldering that I want to do is I'm going to put flux anywhere where I'm going to solder, but I want to put flux on these 4 points where I have multiple pieces coming together, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out a piece of my solder here. This is 50-50 solder. There are different kinds of solder, but this is 50% lead, 50% tin. And I'm going to take my soldering iron. If you look at the soldering iron tip, it looks like a chisel or a flat blade screwdriver. I teach people to hold it like they're holding a spatula. And instead of like people hold it like a pencil when they're doing electronic soldering, because they have to be very precise, here we just want to treat it like spackle, and we just want to get it onto the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my solder over the point where I put the flux. I'm just going to use the flat of the soldering iron and melt it down to the glass and lift the solder and lift the soldering iron. Next, I'll do this point, melt it down to the glass, lift the solder, lift the soldering iron, again here at this point and at this point. Okay, so now I can actually remove these pins. And while I don't want to be tossing this piece around the room, for all intents and purposes, it's bonded together, and I can maneuver it and change position to be more more convenient for me while I am soldering. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to solder one of these lines. And so I'm going to put flux on one of these lines that I'm going to solder. And you have to flux everywhere that you solder. So now I'm going to lay my solder out over the line, and I'm going to do what I refer to as a press and lift, or a tap and lift. I'm just going to melt it down to the glass, lift up, melt it down to the glass, and lift up. And we're just going to continue down the solder line like this, melting the solder down to the glass. Now that line, all in all, looks pretty good. It's pretty smooth, and it's pretty much a rounded bead, which is what we're looking for. But we can make it better. And what we're going to do is melt it down to the glass and slowly draw it back down to this point, and then right here we're going to lift straight up. And so that's going to let it flow out and ripple out, and it's going to make a nice bead. Now next I'm going to do another line. I'm going to flux the next line here, and I'm going to solder this line. And so I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to tap that down, melt it down to the glass, and lift all the way down, lift. Okay, and here I'm going to again melt it down to the glass and slowly drag it this way, and that ripples back. Now the solder will only stick to the copper. It won't stick to the glass. So like this little tiny dot right there, that will just scratch right off. So don't sweat that. So now I'm going to flux this point right here, and I'm going to solder again. And I don't want to solder the outside. If I do solder to the end and it does run off the end like this, that's fine. I will use that later at the next step. Okay, so I'm going to just turn this, flux this last line here. Oh, I guess I have two more lines. Flux that line. I'm going to solder this. Now, when I smooth this line out, what I don't want to do is what I refer to as icing a cake. I don't want to just smooth out the top like this, because that's just going to make things bumpy and put lines in your solder. So you do want to melt it down to the glass, let the solder become liquid, slowly drag it back along the line, and then right before the end, lift it up nice and smooth, okay? Then I'll do this last line. And smooth that out. There you go. So next I will let this cool completely, and once that is cool to the touch, it'll take 5 to 10 minutes. I will flip it over, solder the other side, and then I will eventually tin the outside edge of the heart, and I'll show you how to do that next.